Hi guys, welcome to the video. I know you've all been eagerly awaiting the full build guide of this build. So, a few little things before we get into the build showcase and the rest of the video. This is a build that works around using Winter's Grasp, Anomaly, Tear of Ethiel, Plague Burst, Solar Fall, and Blade Storm. So, majority of the damage comes from stacking all the ailments on these skills on the targets using the trial belt to inflict them with Mark of Impurity and then proccing that damage to execute them at 10% and spread the debuff around, causing massive explosions, massive damage, and great amounts of fun. The other thing with this build is the reason we're using Blade Storm is because the amount of ailments that were stacked on the target. We have a node on Blade Storm which increases the damage of the skill per ailment on the target, which, as you can see, just scales exponentially out of control and does quite a lot of damage, especially if you can get a nice one-handed dagger with good physical damage and stuff on. You can get quite nice damage just from that one item and one skill alone without having to really buff it up too much and invest into sort of melee talents and things like that. And also the other item that we're using is the Frostweave Quill. This gives your hits which have a freeze chance, 100% chance to be added to your critical chance score, meaning that we can't freeze them anymore, but we can use that to increase our damage as well, and it works really well in this build. So enjoy the build showcase, guys. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back, guys. Now let's crack on with the skill setup and the stat allocation. So stat allocation, because we're going to be farming end-game content, a bit more survivability. What I've been testing with this build is going full toughness. It's only a slight percent difference in the amount of damage that you would get versus going full ferocity. If you think you've got enough survivability, then feel free to go full ferocity, but I found I was getting one shot and stuff like that too much. Still do get one shot, but it's a lot less going full toughness than what it was versus full ferocity. Skill setup. We'll start with everyone's favourite, Winter's Grasp. RIP, the old Winter's Grasp. Similar setup. We're going with these nodes along the top just to give it increased area effect, cooldown reduction, converting that damage over to shadow, and also leaving the damaging area on the ground. Very similar to what we had in the old setup of Winter's Grasp. Moving up the list to tier. With tier, we've gone with these nodes here. So we've got reduced willpower cost, reduced cooldown, converts frost to fire damage, alters a skill so it deals damage over time, and also to give it more critical damage. We've also got one node which we haven't spent since it's leveled up, which will probably go with just a little bit extra damage just to speed it up for us. Next on the list is Solar Fall, and this is a skill setup on screen now. So with this we've gone with increased area effect over time, creates a nova, increased critical damage, reducing the initial cast time. Area effect becomes static when cast, and it can be recast to change its location, and also with increased tick rate just for that little bit extra damage. Plague Burst, we've gone with this setup here. Now you can take it with these nodes here and you can swap over one node, which we'll get to in a second. So increased area effect allows the skill to be cast in the cursor location, increased critical chance, chance for explosions to drop a health globe, very important. You can take this here to increase the chance to inflict ailments inside of the explosion, but we've got quite a high chance anyway, so if you do find you're struggling, you can take that instead of Noxious Smog. I prefer Noxious Smog because of the poison it leaves on the floor. It's quite good when you pull all them enemies to the bosses, kill them, it leaves smog on the floor, just gives you a little bit extra DPS on bosses and single target, or some more chunky health based enemies. And also this one here increases the explosion for each ailment stack on the monster, which is very important. You want that down on the ground when enemies are dying, because each ailment that's on that enemy that dies is going to increase the explosion damage, which will trigger the ripple effect, of which is what you see in the build showcase, where it just chains through all the other enemies. Very important to get that. Mark of Impurity. These are the runes we're running on Mark of Impurity. It's not on our skill bars, but it is part of using the trial belt. So we've gone with marked enemies are more vulnerable to damage. Enemies killed under the effect explode and deal damage based on the target's max health. A very important one that you need for this build. If you kill an enemy that's got 1,000,000 HP, it's going to do a percentage of that to the targets around them. Very, very good, very strong. Mark of Impurity spreads. Very good for clearing big packs that we're luring together. Marked enemies under 10% die instantly. Again, them three just coincide really nicely together. And lastly, increased critical damage on marked targets. All these nodes affect Mark of the Impurity, even though it's not on our bar and it's being used by the trial belt. Very important that you make sure you set them nodes up correctly to get the most out of this build. And up the top here, last but not least, anomaly. So we're using anomaly to try and pull all those targets together and just get them as close together so that when one does die, the explosion chains and it catches as many enemies as we possibly can in that chain effect. So with the runes on this is increased area effect. Skills allowed the casting of 2 vortexes, so we can get them quite close together should we need to reposition them. Globes pulled into the area to cause damage, which is a very important part of the plague burst, where it spawns enemy health globes. Skills Vortex pulls them in multiple times, just helps keep them from doing damage because they're being pulled in, and increases the duration, which is also very effective as well. I did say this was the last spell, but it's not, because we missed out Blade Storm here. So just keep in mind about the health globe that we mentioned before. This skill here has enemies hit by this spawn health globes. So we're going to be spawning insane amounts of health globes on the floor. So one, it increases our survivability because we can heal on demand because we're not using a running potion. Two, it increases the damage dealt by anomaly by pulling all them globes in. It's very, very good node for 1 point. It sort of it coincides with everything else quite well. Converts physical to frost damage. That's purely because I've got increased frost damage on some of the gems. Just gives it a bit more extra damage than what it would if it was base physical damage. It can be held to prolong the duration of the skill. You have to take that on this skill, otherwise it's pretty useless. Increases the damage per ailment an enemy has, so this is the main one. All them ailments on the enemies are gonna really buff the damage of this skill without taking any melee nodes in the Gates of Fate, and only really stacking a weapon that's got decent amount of physical damage and some chance to inflict ailments and stuff like that. It'll just boost that DPS quite nicely. And lastly, just increase weapon damage. Well guys, Gates of Fate's time, and a tree that looks like it's everywhere, but there's a method to my madness. Bear with us, you'll see the genius and the logic behind the decisions that I've made. So what we do is we start going through the soldier tree, taking up the critical damage, and the melee damage also does help with the blade storm damage, to be fair, but we're mainly in it for the crit hit damage. And we come down into the Kabbalist section and we path towards taking Insidious Decay just for the ailment stacks, and it does decrease the damage that isn't damage over time, but we do have, if you remember rightly, our TS skill is changed to damage over time, so it does help buff the damage of that. Just some ailment stacks along here, and then over the other side we've got a Maul offering. Killing an enemy grants 5% damage as corresponding damage type for each ailment stack. Because we stack so many ailments, we get such a big damage boost. Over on the right hand side, just to power the first men, just a 50% chance to multiply the number of ailment stacks, so it just means we get them ailment stacks on a lot quicker and boost our damage a lot faster. As we path around the bottom side of the Kabbalist tree, we pick up Grievous Afflictions just to give us one extra ailment again, and then we path down into the Abyssal Shaper tree and take up the Occult damage, pathing over towards the Occult Affliction, increasing our damage for every curse stack on the enemy. Because we'll stack the curse stacks really quickly with our skills, it'll just increase the DPS again, and this node here just increases the damage a little bit more as well. So all sort of working on multiplying and stacking that damage as fast as we can. We duck into the Assassin tree purely for this node here, just to get increased critical damage. Nothing too special with these, just crit chance scores. We also take a little root back on ourselves for decreased skill cooldown, willpower cost decrease, resistance scores, things like that, max willpower rage, elemental ailment chance score, because we're going to be using so many elemental based skills. That ailment chance score just increases the chances that we'll get that. And again, another ailment chance increased score. Pathing up into the Patreon tree, we came left and picked up health globes. Now provide temporary buff to your resistances as well as healing you. Remember what we said before, we're going to be spawning so many life globes on the floor. It works to heal us because we've got no healing pots. It works to boost our anomaly DPS, and it also gives us a lot more resistances as well. So just increasing the survivability while also providing damage. Pathing up the top side of the tree, I came back and got blocking enemies attack inflicts them with a weakness, so we apply a weakness upon block. You might be thinking I'm not using a shield, but this node up here gives us the benefit of block chance from any weapon equipped, and the node to the left it just increases our block efficiency. So you'll see that quite often I block a lot of attacks, again just make it a little bit more tanky, and inflicting a weakness to inflict our increase our damage, as we're sort of defending ourselves, which is really good. I pathed up into the Exorcist tree just to get the Tenon points. I had this in the old Winter's Grasp build. It's very good. It decreases the damage that we take. Very, very useful for high-end tier content. I've tried it without this, and it just doesn't quite cut it. You need all the survivability that you can and the damage, and somewhere along the line you have to drop some damage to take some survivability. So it's very worth taking this point and this path through this tree. We'll come back on ourselves and we pass down towards the Time Weaver tree, and then again this is just boosting all our damage, and it looks quite sporadic, but there's a method to it when you scroll through and you see what it's for. So we get passive judge chance and some more force field, more ailment stacks, dire juncture just to delay the damage that we get. So if ever we get the 10 stacks are fully dropped and exhausted, if we do take a big hit, it'll just stagger that damage, which will give her a chance to pick up some of the health globes on the floor and just sort of not be one shot. Like I say, you do still get one shot with this build, because I don't think there's any build that can't be one shot in this game, but it happens a lot less often with the dire juncture passive node. And this skill here just increases a bit more HP. Over here, more ailment stacks, force shield regeneration, and we take time which cannot heal, similar to the old Winter's Grasp build. Just saying that when you inflict damage on an enemy that's afflicted with stasis, it will take the damage again after a few seconds. Because our skills inflict the status debuff, it will stagger the damage and then just increase the amount of damage that would do over the course of the battle. And again, this just increases the damage dealt after that delay. Pathing over the far right hand side of the tree, I came down over this way to take my beloved node, which is the Salvatory Anchor in the Siege Breaker tree. Again, in the Winter's Grasp build, remember we took a heavy chest and a heavy armor with really good resistance scores on to really increase the amount of resistances that we got. Same again in this build, look for high resistance armor on your head, because with us using the Frostweave Quill, we don't get the same resistance bonus, but if you get a really good headpiece, you can benefit quite a lot from that bonus. Over the left hand side, this just increases our block efficiency again, increasing our survivability. Every few seconds we get a fortress point. One fortress point is 4% chance per point. So it goes up to 10, which gives you a 40% block chance, which again just increases that survivability. Some odd skills that I had left over, I didn't know where to place them, so I've been playing around with the little bits and pieces. That's why this tree looks a bit sporadic, because I backed up on myself and took the extra spell damage and ailment damage, and I believe I pathed up here as well to get the extra willpower and rage. I'm very close to leveling up, only 2 bars left to go, and I'm really struggling to where I'm going to place that point. I think it's at a point now with being such a high level that spending these last few points wisely becomes harder and harder, because you want to go for extra damage, but at the same time you do want a little bit more survivability. And 1 point on the level up now can't really path you anywhere really important. The only thing I've got left that I really want to take is this node over here, I believe. Yeah. So slip and shadow just means we can dodge roll through enemies, which is very good. When you're luring them all together, you can get trapped, but if you can dodge roll through them, it means you can get to the other side of them, pack them up a little bit closer before you use that anomaly and don't waste it. So once we've took this skill, we're pushing on for the next level. We'll have some decisions to be made about what we can do with that. And that's it for the Gate of Fate's passives, guys. Join me in the next part of the video. We'll be going over the item setups. Okay guys, so item stats. This is the one part of the video that I would say is still being toyed with, because our items aren't all set up necessarily for this build, because we're still running a lot of items from the old Winter's Grasp, and we're still trying to find like the right combination to make this build really powerful. It is quite powerful at the minute, but I think if you get perfect rolls of the stats that you want on items, it will be so much stronger. So sockets for now. And running spell damage seems to be the highest way to increase the damage overall of all the different abilities that we've got. And then in the other off sockets, I'm using frost damage just to further buff the DPS from Winter's Grasp. Still testing around with that. It might not be the best choice. There's a few other ones that I was looking at. So I was looking at rolling it to support 2s and then taking ailment chance scores to try and increase the chance that we get all them ailments on just to get them in. And then I was also looking at maybe possibly going with critical chance score. So there's a little bit of testing to do. I'll come back to you with what I think's best for me. You might have something that you might want to look to buff on your kit because you have different stats on your items just to compensate and even things out. So weapon wise, I've gone for the highest roll damage dagger I could find, and then on the priority I would say is high phys roll damage on the dagger, followed by some crit damage, ailment or crit score. And then you want your damage to attacks with this weapon, and then finally, like a little quality of life, is life leech. Because we're going to be inflicting quite a lot of damage with blade storm, just gives us a little bit extra damage, sort of mitigation with all the health globes and stuff. Just gives us a little bit extra healing with we're not having an HP potion. Item wise, you want to be looking at going for damage to occult and elemental, added damage to spells, highest rolls you can possibly find on your rings, necklace, and catalysts. Rage and willpower cost decrease is always good. Resistance and HP, some people might not put that up there, but I do think getting a good amount of HP and resistances does just increase that survivability and high-end content. And then lower priority I would say is chance to inflict ailments / crit scores, and then the quality of life that I always try and get, which I don't think I've got at the minute, is movement speed on your boots, which I haven't got on this item. I've got a few in storage with decent rolls of movement speed and other rolls of other things on there to try and increase in the dark market. I think I've got a set of boots in there at the moment as well, so hopefully we can hit a good roll and upgrade these boots. So we'll flick through my items, but like I say, these aren't 100% efficient for this build because we're still working with some old items from the previous builds and we just haven't been able to land it lucky and get the items that we want. So boots, increased damage, ferocity for the crit, resource generation, attack speed, and resistances. Quite decent. Would love some movement speed on there. I'd probably drop the material resistance for some movement speed and I'd be over the moon with that. Pants, I've gone for transfer time, ferocity, attack speed and ailment chance, and then obviously the health on there as well. Catalyst has increased shadow damage, 87% spell damage, casting speed score, ailment chance on elemental skills, that's the likes of the Winter's Grasp and the Tear, and duration of curses inflicted on enemies. So because we're inflicting curses, it just increases the duration that they're going to have that debuff for, which is quite good. Rings, we've got added damage to spells, some occult damage, frost damage into life leech, which is quite good for the Winter's Grasp and the Tear spell, and then occult ailment chance score, so that's what anomaly scale and things like that. Another ring is pretty similar, occult damage, added damage to spells. Force field regeneration is pretty meh. I could do with rolling that off, but if I roll something else off, I'll break the ring, and I don't have a replacement at the moment, so just living with it. Gauntlets, they're pretty much both the same. Occult damage, resource, ferocity, crit, and ailment chances. A little bit of wisdom on there, just for increased chance to inflict those ailments. Necklace, again, elemental damage, spells. You can see the recurring theme of crit damage, ailment chance, spells, all that kind of thing. Shoulders are probably the biggest letdown for me at the moment because health regeneration and stuff like that, it's not really worth it. But I do want the resistance score heavy shoulders. So trying to hit them with good rolls is going to be probably the next lot of upgrades I work on after getting movement speed on boots. Finally, heavy head, because we've got, again, the node which increases with resistance based on this, so I've got a very high roll on here. I haven't come across anything higher rolled than this so far in the game. Obviously I know you can get them, but unfortunately I haven't had them dropped. And then finally the two items which are required for this build, definitely the trial, 100% needed to sort of chain the mark of impurity damage as I execute and to increase our damage. And then finally the Frostweave Quill, just to, again, buff the crit chance from our freeze chance, which is quite good as well. You do lose a little bit of survivability by not having the heavy chest, but the damage that you get from that is really, really good. And that's it for this part of the video, guys. And in fact, the video overall. I'd just like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. All you guys that have subscribed in the last week or two since I've started making these videos, the people that's been stopping by the stream and stuff like that. Thanks for the support and feedback and things like that. If there's anything else you'd like to see in these types of videos, just let us know in the comments below. Alternatively, any upcoming builds that you would like to see. I'm thinking about going and doing a bow build. I haven't seen many of them around, so I'm thinking of trying to do something with bows. I've also got a little sort of thing up my sleeve for kind of sneaky dagger rogue kind of build. But I can't really work out the nitty gritty parts of that yet, how that's going to work, because the testing I've done with some dagger builds doesn't seem to do a lot of damage. It can clear multiple mobs alright. It's not the quickest, but it can clear them alright. But single target seems to just drop off, so I'm looking for a way to increase single target damage on that. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, like a summoner build, a full mage build, anything like that, drop them in the comments below and I'll have a look and see what we can sort out to get some more of these guides done. Thanks again, guys.